How was your back doing? You're not running yet, right?
Uh, I do like 7 minutes every other day I run. I walk a
Oh,
lot. Yeah. I walk like an hour 20 every morning and I do some running in there. But it's like a weird back thing, like in the middle of my back. I don't know. I think I jumped out of my car too quickly. Don't get
I would
old,
definitely.
CJ.
Yeah, I'll try. I would guess that that is still much more activity than the average person.
That I'm
What you're doing
doing?
now, what you're
Yeah.
doing now in
Yeah.
recovery is still,
Yeah. I would guess so. Oh man. Fucking A. I just had to do my first fantasy football draft in 14 years. I had
Whoa.
sworn it
Okay.
off. I hate it. But we do a league with listeners where we give like 10 spots away to listeners and then we do the draft at Chickies and Pete's. And of course, I had to do it. So
What's the process for giving listener spots in the league?
we make them beg for it.
Good.
or be clever, but most people just do the begging part.
It's like my most normal guy opinion is I just fucking love it, dude.
Fantasy football.
I fucking
Drafts.
love that shit, man.
Yeah.
How many leagues are you in, Mike?
Leagues. Three.
Any dynasty?
One is the main one is the How I Met Your Mother fantasy football draft league that is still it's like has keeper elements to it.
So redraft, but there's keeper.
Yeah, one keeper, like you can keep one guy that if you drafted him and kept him all on your team last year and you took him after the 5th round. So it's like you get to keep him one round after you kept him. I would like more things like that. That's why the John Gonzalez Execs League is satisfying to me because I like real specificity in my rules and team building and long-term planning and stuff. But some of the other guys in the league are not as checked in there and would be like, what is it? What is this?
Yeah.
So I think it's for the best.
So there's this thing I always propose. And the thing I hate about fantasy football is that you're going against somebody, but you're not really going against them. You just happen to be matched up with them that week. So you could have the 3rd highest points in the league that week, but if you face the guy who has the 2nd points in the league, all right. So my idea was, okay, let's add some strategy where everyone in the league, I'm just throwing out numbers. The number doesn't matter. You go up into a matchup and you can lock 3 of your players that the other team cannot touch.
Okay.
But the other team can come in and deactivate any of your 2 players. And then you have to build the roster after they deactivate the players. So
Any
there's
other player, so you can protect 3 players.
3
and then
players that week.
They lock 2 other ones. That's cool.
Yeah. And
I like
and
that.
then that way there's some strategy going the other way of like there's just like a little more head to head if you're gonna have head to head.
Well, I'll do that sometimes in like certainly in the playoffs when it's like, oh, their tight end or quarterback is questionable or something. I'm going to pick up that person's backup
Backup.
right now. Like, and it actually usually backfires because it's like not really in the spirit of it, but I'm like, I've got to do something.
Yeah.
I'm not going to not do something.
You gotta be a real GM.
I really like, I have all sorts of fantasy football opinions. So many. My biggest one that I talk about all the time with my friends is I think you should get points for winning. Like if you have a
your
player on your
teams
team,
win.
Like a victory.
if you have
point.
Rashee Rice, it should be a 2-point, 3-point bonus
If they want.
if their team wins. And so it's a little bit more incentivized to like make it somewhat closer to real football. Mm-hmm. And so you get to go like, okay, this guy's going to get a lot of, targets and stuff, but is he going to win any actual games?
Now
So I like that as a thing. There's a million things I like. I think it shouldn't. I like PPR, but I don't think that you should get the point per reception unless it's like a positive yardage play. If you get like a reception for like -6, you shouldn't get like 0.4 points out of that.
I also think touchdowns are a little overvalued in fantasy
A little
football.
overvalued.
Yeah.
A little overvalued. And I think quarterback rushing yards should be less.
Yes.
It should be for a receiver or a running back or whatever, 10 yards per point, great. But for a quarterback, it should be maybe like 15 or 20. So these, I mean, we could do the whole podcast about this.
Well, we got questions to answer, Mike.
Okay.
So. The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Sign up for DraftKings Sportsbook by using promo code RTRS, and brought to you by Briggs Auction. What the fuck did I do with my back? The official auction of the process at briggsauction.com. Big Barker Therapeutic Dog Beds. Get yours at bigbarker.com/Ricky. I might need one of those tonight. And Mortgage CS, become a Mortgage CS Ricky VIP at mortgagecs.com/Ricky. And Surfside Iced Tea and Vodka, the official sponsor of the Corner 3 newsletter with Zoe and me. Subscribe at rightstoRickySanchez.com/newsletter. On the show today, we may regret this. We'll have to talk it through, actually, because I'm starting to regret it. But it is the podcast where we answer the questions you have about the podcast. Just started listening 3.5 years ago. Don't know what something means? Well, Mike has offered that we will, for one time and one time only, answer your questions. So we will do that on today's pod. Join our team for Bark in the Park, the Providence Animal Center's annual 5K and 1 mile run and fall festival in Rose Tree Park. Our sponsors are Mortgage CS and LL Pavorsky Jewelers. If you join our team and raise at least $100, you're going to get our special team shirt. Our goal is to raise $20,000 this year. I think we're up around 36 or 3,700, and I have like $500 to match, so we're up around 4,000. But we got a while to go. The event is October 26th, and I will put the link to, or CJ will put the link to join the team in the description of this pod. Happy birthday to Trevor from Leanne. Leanne is Trevor's fiance. Leanne says, he has been listening to Rights to Ricky for the past 10 years and quite literally talks about you guys almost every day. Not to mention, we were living in California for a few months and we went to the Clippers-Sixers game this past spring, and I kid you not, he pointed both of you guys out within seconds of sitting down in our seats. Every time we get in the car, he immediately put you guys on, and I can't describe the level of sadness that comes over him when there hasn't been a new episode released.
Wow.
Happy birthday, Trevor. You got a good one right there. And good luck getting married in November.
People who feel the same way, my parents, and it's today is their anniversary.
Oh.
So happy 36th wedding anniversary to Toby and Glenn.
Happy 36th wedding anniversary to Toby and Glenn. And happy future anniversary to Trevor and Leanne.
There you
and happy
go.
birthday to Trevor.
It's the anniversary pod.
Anniversaries. We have two other podcasts in the Ricky family of pods that both have new episodes this week. The Draft Council, our 52-week-a-year NBA draft podcast, hosted by Dan Ollinger and Ahmed Jama, have a new episode this week with the top international prospects in the 2025 draft. They say all of them. I don't know how you do that in an hour, but they say all of them. Well, at least the top ones. So you can search for the Draft Council wherever you get your podcasts. And the Carl Landry Record Club, our music podcast hosted by me and Mutlu, have a new episode this week where we talk about the Beatles' White Album, Lana Del Rey's Ultraviolence, and the new single from Nas and DJ Premier. How about that for all over the place? And Surfside Iced Tea and Vodka. I was just over at Chickies and Pete's for our fantasy football draft, and Ike was nursing one of those as he tends to do. Ike loves his Surfside. And then, actually, did he have a Surfside or he had a soda? I think he had a stateside vodka and soda. I think he had an orange. But come on, you're gonna have a canned beverage that's lightly sweet, has real vodka in it, only has 100 calories. You got to get a Surfside, whether it's the iced tea and vodka, the lemonade and vodka, the raspberry tea and vodka, the peach tea and vodka, whatever the fuck, the lemonade and vodka. It's the best. And we're getting pictures now from all over the country, people that see, oh, I saw a Surfside billboard here, I saw one here, blah, blah, blah. I think they're in Texas now. It's wild. Anyway, go to statesidevodka.com and you can order it there or get it wherever you get your canned beverages. You got to be 21, though. Without any further ado, Amos and the chef.
Laddie, sweetie, the man is here. Say the name. I say the name. I say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We was right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. We were right, y'all. We were right. Even when it went wrong, we were right. We were right, y'all. We were right. So say the name. Say the name. Say the name.
last forever.
Welcome to the Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast. I'm Spike Eskin, along with a guy who has some normal guy traits. That is one, Mike Levin.
That's me, baby.
You got
We're still in August.
Yep.
Still here. Another August to go. And we're answering your questions.
Yes.
We're answering your lore questions. This is the Ricky lore episod.
Now,
Get out your like encyclopedias. You know, George R. R. Martin has like addendums to all of his works.
Yeah.
This is that. This is that for us.
so let me ask you this. Are you really sure we should do this? Now, I mentioned last time that AU would not approve.
What did he say? He didn't reach out to me about it.
Something to the effect of horrifying or hold on, let me find the email. I'll tell you in a second. I actually can't. It was something to that effect.
That's August. That's as August as it gets. Looking for an email, can't find
Yeah,
it on
yeah.
pod. Waiting patiently.
He was not happy about it. So
Here's the thing.
Yeah.
If you're listening to this podcast,
Yep.
where
You
there has
deserve
been
it.
no news whatsoever, although I guess we could talk about the stadium, but what are we gonna say? I don't know. Both sides bad.
Yeah.
You are already like a sicko of the pod
Yeah.
if you're listening to this one, and you deserve the information you seek. That's how I feel.
Okay. Well, then if that's how you feel, that's what we will do. We also did hear from.
It's also something to do.
That's a good point. I give you credit for that point.
We could start talking about the thing that I pitched CJ to do for next playoffs.
Which is
Remember I told you? It was like a week after the playoffs ended, and I was like, we should do this for next year.
Yeah, I just
you
can't
were
remember
like,
what it was.
Well, it was great. Does CJ remember? Not if you remember, CJ. Oh, God. God damn
I
it.
remember pieces of it, but specifically.
All right, I'll tell you off pod. I want it to be a surprise.
All right,
but
okay.
There's not much to talk about, so
Okay.
we're doing the lore episode.
Now, we did have, there was a question last pod about where Weekly Becky went and if she was okay.
Yes.
She did leave over 6 minutes of voicemails,
Wow.
over 4 different voicemails. I do have some of that, and maybe we'll get to that later, but Weekly Becky is okay.
That's just good to hear.
And she is still out of breath. So all right. So what we're going to do is we're just going to roll through these, and at the end, we will address the question that was asked at least 25 times in emails and voicemails. There was one question. Do you want to guess what that one was?
Yeah,
There
it's
was one.
Lickface. It's Lickface.
Yeah, yeah. So
Go for it.
well, I say we do that one last.
It's just not a satisfying answer, though.
Yes, it's not that good an answer. And there was one guy that said, somebody explained it on Reddit, but I felt like that couldn't be true. And I don't know, it's actually probably true, but
Yeah.
all right. So we'll start with, there were a few questions on Reddit, then we will get to the emails. Reddit number 1, David Silver. They don't say David Stern or Adam Silver. I feel like I missed something. I think I have been listening for 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So David Silver, the name itself is a character on 90210, which is why I think the name wormed its way into my head. And instead of calling Adam Silver, I called him David Silver
By mistake.
And we decided, I think, as a proper amount of disrespect
Yes.
to keep calling him that.
That's right.
That's it. So it was a mistake that we latched onto.
That's right. I think it was around the time that it was definitely post Colangelo.
Yes. Yeah.
Being saddled with him, and maybe around the time that Mike Weber screamed at him from his seats when he was walking
Yes.
by at the arena.
Right.
It was probably
Yes.
around that time.
This comes from Steve the Pirate 215 on Reddit.
It's a dodgeball.
Now-
That's a dodgeball reference 20 years later.
Oh, is it?
Unbelievable.
Why didn't Mike invite Spike to his wedding? How many more hours of podcasting was needed for Spike to earn an
That's
invite?
what it was. Just a few hours short, I think. Had the Sixers gone longer playoff runs, I think it would have done it. No, you guys, I had a small wedding, and it was an intimate affair, and that's how it had to happen. There were a lot of people that didn't make the cut, sadly. Simple as that.
I didn't make the cut.
Didn't make the cut.
Didn't make the cut. This comes from Trombulation. They will allude to some old All-Star game story of Spike's, I think involving someone from the Atlanta Hawks, but never tell the actual story. What is the story?
I can take this one. It's, You went to the All-Star game.
Nope.
And
very close. Very close.
I thought you went.
No, very close. I was somewhere, but not specifically the All-Star game. I was at the All-Star practice at the Barclays Center. So it was when the All-Star game was at MSG and the practice was at the Barclays Center. My wife got us tickets for the practice for my birthday or something like that. Continue.
So at the practice, and you're walking around, and you tell me this story about how you saw a guy in a Paul Millsap Hawks jersey, and he was so excited to be. It was a long run up to this story, and the reveal was that you were making it up because nobody would ever get a Paul Millsap jersey.
Very close. The only difference was, I believe that I was in the merch store and lots of people were buying Millsap jerseys or something to that effect, and people were, so whatever. Yes, and of course the reveal was, haha, and I really did fucking nail you on that one.
Yeah,
you didn't see it coming.
Yeah, you got me.
You were so excited that I nailed you on it. I remember.
Yeah, I was like, good. Nicely done.
Yeah. So if you would like,
but that was pre Paul Millsap's, illustrious Sixers career. Obviously.
Correct. Yes. And it was during our hatred of the 5 All-Star, my hatred, I guess, of the 5 All-Star Hawks.
That was you, yeah.
Yeah.
God, we've been doing this a long time.
So, and here we go in the chat. Spike said that the most cheers for the All-Star game walkout were for Paul Millsap, more than LeBron, etc. So if you want to go hear that, you could just, now all of our old podcasts are not on the internet, obviously, but you could just go back to that approximate time, and I think it's in the title or something.
You're not going to find it. It's too many. They'll go back.
Yeah, don't. So this came, now we get to the email to rights@rickysanchez@gmail.com. And this one came from Bill. And I thought it was interesting because we got maybe 4 or 5 people that said this about how they became a new listener, because your question, and in doing this, it was like, how does that even happen? Why do you start listening now? And we did get this response a few times, as I have obviously cost us listeners. This came from Bill. Hi, Spike, Mike, and CJ. I'm a Ricky listener who started following the pod in 2022, and I wanted to provide context. I'm a big Sixers fan and process believer who attended the lottery party at Buffalo Wild Wings in the Northeast with my friends. I am also a former Ben Simmons defender who would argue with friends, family members, and coworkers about Ben. Quote, okay, he doesn't shoot, but look at everything else he does on the court, was my go-to line. Sure. I never listened to the podcast because Spike would piss me off for always bashing Ben Simmons. Sure. Like all Ben Simmons haters, I thought Spike didn't know basketball and was a box score watcher, but Spike was right and I was wrong. And so for my penance, I tune into every episode and sometimes watch live on YouTube. So
that's fair. That's so
fair.
There
you go. Before we get to the most embarrassing question, and this was the first question we got, and I swear when I saw this question, I wanted to text you and say, we're not doing this. After we talk about Briggs Auction, the official auction of the Ricky. Now, CJ does not have his Briggs Auction item of the week, not because he's slacking, which he may do sometimes, but he's not doing it right now. It's because this is one of the very few weeks where they're not like 1 or 2 auctions going at Briggs Auction right now. Now, I believe they have a house up there right now in Media, PA. They had one in Newtown Square last week. And this is what I would say about the houses they have on there. It's a tough time to buy a house, right? We've mentioned that before when we talk about Mortgage CS or Kasabi. And these are good locations, good size house, maybe a little fixer-upper things. But if you're looking for a different way to maybe find yourself a new home in Delaware County, this is the good place to do it. We love Briggs.
I'll say this.
Yeah, are you going to buy the house?
If someone buys a house off Briggs Auction,
oh boy, that
counts as 100 engagement rings.
Oh,
to LL. So I think it's 100. So if LL's at what, 400 something?
412 ish.
So we only need 4 houses to go for Briggs to catch up to LL. Buying a house from a podcast, I think, would be just something that deserves 100 times the amount of
but
quality of the engagement.
People have bought houses from Kasabi.
Yes, but that's not. He's
From them.
They're using a realtor.
Right,
That's
right.
also great, and I love
Yeah,
it. But
yeah.
specifically, there's a house for sale on our sponsor,
Okay.
and I think that's a new level. So
Okay.
I want to hear about it.
Well, Briggs Auction is a 4-generation family-owned and operated auction house in Delco in Garnet Valley. Now, like, it's nice, it's a family-owned business, but you don't really give a fuck, right? Like, you want to shop. And boy, Ricky listeners be shopping at Briggs Auction because it is fun as shit. Every week, at the very least, every other week, a brand new, estate auction or a discovery auction, which are the super fun ones because stuff is all over the place. One-of-a-kind furniture, clothes, art, collectibles. September 13th, they have another sports collectibles auction, which they've done and was really successful last time. What I suggest you do, download the app in Google Play or the App Store, check in once a week. See what the auctions, there's thousands of lots. Most of them start at like $1. And you're just stuff that stuff that you didn't know that you needed. BriggsAuction.com or download the app, the Briggs Auction app in Google Play or the App Store. If you win a lot, pickup is easy. Saturdays open pickup by appointment during the week. They can work with a shipper for you if you can't get there. And if you need to downsize or you have, you're in somebody's will and you have all this stuff now and you're like, I don't really even want this. Briggs Auction can help you get rid of it. Send an email to info@briggsauction.com. That is Briggs Auction, the official auction of the process. So here is the first email we got from Automatic Vibes with a Z. Hi, Spike, Mike, CJ, and Daryl. My name is Phil. I'm 24. I'm a lifelong Sixers fan and Philadelphian. I didn't even discover podcasts in general until 2019. In September 2022, I randomly got a YouTube recommendation for the Zach Lowe pod. I clicked on it being a fan of Zach's work and accidentally stumbled on the best and only Sixers pod. 2 years later, and I've watched almost every episode you've dropped since. None of my close friends are diehard Sixers fans, so I really look forward to those after-game pods with the Ricky community. This is getting kind of long. I wish I had a better question, but I need to know, who the fuck is Ricky Sanchez?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Ricky Sanchez obviously predated the pod by several years, but I think existed when I was writing at Liberty Ballers.
He did.
The Sixers acquired the rights to Ricky Sanchez, who is a Puerto Rican center. In the draft, they acquired his rights. He never came over, and then subsequently traded his rights for Sam Young
to the Memphis Grizzlies. Yeah.
Yes, who then played briefly for the Sixers, and was obviously an athletic wing from Pitt, who I did believe in, Sam Young. And so when we were coming up with names for this podcast, not realizing that it would become our personalities. For the next 11 years. That was an inside, like, hyper online Sixers joke that we went with, and now it's here. Now it's forever. Now I say it in meetings. I have to explain it. It hasn't been worth it. It hasn't been. We should have called it like Sixers stuff. Basketball time with the Sixers. Anything but this. But
that came in second place. Basketball time with the Sixers.
Yeah.
This came from Alexander. I've been
He's
listening.
still playing, and then Sam Hinkie sent us a picture of him watching a game somewhere in Europe, scouting a player, and Ricky Sanchez was on the other team. And he's and we're on Ricky Sanchez's Wikipedia page.
Yes. And also, I believe it was the FIBA World Championships that he was playing in, but the announcers made reference to the podcast at that time. So there you go. This came from Alexander. I've been listening for a while, and I have a vague idea of most of the references, but I need Retweet Armageddon and Lickface explained. Thanks again. Love the pod. We'll get to Lickface later. Retweet Armageddon was... So I actually remember the first time I ever said it. I was at a dinner in Atlantic City, and Tony Bruno and my father came in for some reason, sat at the table. They were there too. And they were both very anti-process. And I got very angry at them at this dinner. And I said, do you know what is going to happen. You guys are going to be fucking wrong. And we're going to retweet all your old fucking takes. And it's going to be Retweet Armageddon. And we talked about it a lot. But then when things started to go right, we decided that this would have to happen at some point, but we didn't know when. So we got a collection of lunatics, decided on who they would be, and called them the Retweet Armageddon Congress. And somebody could nominate a time for when Retweet Armageddon would happen, and everybody would have to vote on it. We decided on when the trade for the number 1 pick in the NBA draft, which would become Markelle Fultz, became official.
We had a whole Congress. It was people that the Congress was really representative of Sixers fandom. I don't remember exactly who it was, but there were local Sixers people. There was a national. It was Danny Chow, the national process listener.
I'm sure I could go into the email and find it. Are you still there? Oh, did you unplug? He unplugged his microphone. That happens every once in a while. I'm looking for the Retweet Armageddon Congress email chain. And, here we go. Congress in session.
And then there were people that were just random, listeners of the podcast that were also for... We had a whole drawing or something like that.
So are we
really
allowed...
representative. That was the most government we've ever done.
Okay, so what I will say, there's at least... I know there's one person on here that did not want to be identified at the time. And I will say that... What's that?
Isn't it Derek?
Yes. Well, there you
we
go.
can say it's Derek now. It's been years.
Okay. So Derek Bodner, Danny Chow, Max Rappaport, who I believe worked for the team at the time.
Not at the time.
Not at the time. Okay.
Maybe former employee, but
Liz Rocher, who is a Phillies blogger, our friend Brandon Lee Galton, who was for Bleeding Green Nation, and Rob McNamara, who was a local fan representative from Mount Airy, and Brett Ling, who was an international
we had
fan
an international
representative from Perth.
That's amazing.
And here is the email you sent to everyone introducing them. Friends, this is momentous. The 10 of us will be deciding on when a bunch of hapless take artists get blasted in front of the whole internet. We're being counted on by scores of Sixers fans in their resting Philadelphian state of prideful excitement mixed with righteous fury to carry out our duties. And so we shall.
What year is this?
This is 2017, January 18th.
So the same year that the pick swap trade happened.
Yes.
Was the same year the Congress was convened.
And here is the Constitution. You write, we have...
I had too much time on my hands.
We have one shot at this. There's only one Retweet Armageddon. Yeah. Let's not waste it. But on the flip side, let's not be so precious about it that the moment passes.
Yeah.
In parentheses, you put, Embiid dies, actual Armageddon happens, et al. Before we can...
one of those things. One of those...
No, before we can have a Retweet Armageddon. Exactly. Basically, we're trying to capture the process at its peak or near peak, so the full weight of Hinky's planned work, you were all wrong, is felt by the wrongdoers. So when an event happens, say Embiid being named an all-star, the Sixers being a great team on national TV, etc., any member of the Retweet Armageddon Congress can email this group and ask for a vote. Every one of us will reply with yay or nay. You can make your case as to why you voted that way, but everyone must respond ideally quickly. The rules of voting are as follows. 1, a majority vote, that is at least 6 of us, means Retweet Armageddon has begun. 2, then we're done. What remains of the internet is left to fend for itself. You're not obligated to tweet about it, but this is a transparent body, so the voting results will be made public. And
it's fun. We aimed so low with Embiid All-Star.
Yes. And by the way,
it's been better than that.
By the way, it was the number 1 trending topic in the United States when it happened. There was an article on Grantland about it, and Embiid, though he spelled Armageddon wrong,
unfortunately,
participated and quote tweeted my dad and said Dario is never coming over.
Really good. Really great. Really, what a wonderful moment that was. It was. It was not when the picks swapped.
No.
Which happened at the lottery.
Correct.
Because of the pick swap trade with the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah.
When Carl Landry came over from Sacramento, and basically it was just a salary dump trade that the Kings created salary for essentially nothing. And so the Sixers jumped from 5-3 because of the pick swap trade, because of the pick swapping. And then a few weeks later or sometime later, the pick swap trade was with Boston from 3-1, where obviously can't remember what happened. Nobody remembers what happened, but that is what the trade for the Sixers to go up to 1 using the assets that they had that Hinkie acquired, that the process was all about. That is what triggered Retweet Armageddon. And I think that is perfect. Yeah. It's perfect that it happened that way.
Yep. I thought so too. And we received word that the local writers were incredibly mad.
Good.
Even though I think we even got Retweet Armageddon, I believe, at some point.
Yeah, I have a tweet out there about saying the Sixers are going to win the 2017 finals with MCW and Noah Vonleh. Like, what are we talking about? Everyone's got bad takes, but their takes were worse, and they did deserve it, and they were incredibly, proudly wrong for many years, and they were very emotional about being called out for how wrong they were, and they were. And the Sixers, though they have failed in many ways, are a relevant team because they drafted Joel Embiid. If they had not done that, they wouldn't have. It would be 20 years of irrelevancy for the Sixers.
This comes from Donovan. Hey, Spike and Mike, I don't write in often, but since you guys were explaining some of the jokes of the Ricky, I was wondering if you could explain the color star thing. I remember when it happened vaguely, but I didn't understand it, and it seemed shady to me.
You gotta listen to the episode. That took too long.
Yeah, it was really long. What I'll say in short is that
I had to explain this to a writer's room like a few months ago, and I was like, oh really? Fuck, okay, shit. It's really a difficult thing to explain, but former cement mix company.
Yep.
With a CEO that could not be found, with a silly name, Sir Lucas Capetian.
A fake LinkedIn profile with a degree that did not exist.
Yes. And his picture was like animated.
Yes.
It wasn't a real picture. Had opened a metaverse. And then like became a Sixers sponsor for what, like $100,000 or something like that. Not like to be on the jersey, but to be like, you know, on the banner or something at Wells Fargo Center maybe. And they were teaching classes. It was like Shaq was in the metaverse teaching classes. And it's like, what is this? And then they released images of the metaverse. It's the worst thing in the world. Like, it was just so clearly some front for something. And whoever was in charge of vetting this operation at the Sixers did a very bad job, because the company is fake. And it was all broken by Defector, and then continued to report it on across the board.
Let's be clear. It was broken in part by CJ, who did the first expose on our podcast, right. I believe. And then wait.
Broken by CJ.
Well, I mean, if you go back to his episode, it was very, very good. But then we had J.R. Maley on, who basically investigates international organized crime.
Investigator, yeah.
Yeah, who he went and he gave us even more information on it. So,
quite a bit.
Yeah.
I think I was sourcing Dan McQuaid, is it?
Oh, from Defector.
From Defector? Yeah, I think he had a good tweet thread kind of just being like, what the fuck's going on with this? And then I was able to like find the LinkedIn stuff for the pod, and then Defector obviously did much deeper.
And then they quietly just like scuttled the partnership.
Well, we were actually, we've never broken any stories, but we were able to break the story that the Sixers had canceled their relationship with Color Star, which was honestly one of the greatest text messages I ever received.
It's just, there's so many of those kinds of things. You would think that the organization that had the Brian Colangelo Twitter fiasco would have been a little bit more careful with like stuff online.
Yep.
But they weren't. And that's why we love them.
The Rights to Ricky Sanchez podcast is brought to you by Big Barker Therapeutic Dog Beds. I'm going to need to sleep on one of these fucking things tonight. My back is fucking killing me. I don't know what I did. In any case, Big Barker has nothing to do with me and everything to do with you and your dog. Go to bigbarker.com/Ricky. Bigbarker.com/Ricky. By the way, the couple that I mentioned at the top of the pod, hang on, they have a dog that sleeps on a Big Barker. I believe it is the Leanne's dog, the fiance. Well, I guess they're both fiancés, but hang on.
Well, the one has one E, one has two E's.
Oh,
How it's
yes.
spelled.
Well, then she is the fiancé, and he is the fiancée.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. I can't find it. They have a dog. I'll put it in the process pup gallery. Anyway, go to bigbarker.com/Ricky. Bigbarker.com/Ricky. There you will learn about the Big Barker. But essentially, here's the thing, is that most dog beds are they're not beds. They're not well made. They're glorified pillows. And while they might look comfortable, they're not going to keep your dog healthy. And to be honest with you, as your dog gets older and, arthritis starts to creep in, the longer that your dog sleeps on these beds, the worse it is for the dog as far as their comfort, but as far as the actual physiology of the dog. You got to get your dog a real bed to sleep on. Big Barker, engineered by experts to keep your dog healthier. If your dog is older and already starting to experience some of the symptoms of arthritis, it will provide relief. If your dog is younger, it'll keep that dog at its best even longer. We've seen that with Rebel. Rebel has been sleeping on a Big Barker for like 7 years, 7 years. And he's 10 and shows no signs of arthritis whatsoever. Now, obviously, it's not a one-to-one thing, but it helps. Penn Vet did a study, showed improvement in joint function, reduction in pain severity, reduction in joint stiffness, all that stuff just from sleeping on a Big Barker. Not only that, they're nice to look at too, come in all different colors, all different shapes, all different sort of alignments, whether they have the couch one that has the sort of like the things around the sides, and then there's the Big Barker with the headrest and all that kind of stuff, all different colors, very, very nice. You can get different covers if you want, different colors. I just recommend it. And as well, it's not just for big dogs, though big dogs suffer from the effects of arthritis more than small dogs do, but they have the Barker Jr. all the way up to the XL. Just a great looking product and a really great product that we are proud to support. Go to bigbarker.com/Ricky. Send us a picture of your dog on the bed. We'll put them in the process pup gallery. 10-year warranty. The foam doesn't flatten or they replace it for free. 1-year at-home trial. If you don't like it, your dog won't sleep on it. You can send it back. They'll even pay for the shipping and give you a full refund. Handmade in the USA. Big Barker dog beds. This came from Josh.
Wait, before we get to Josh,
Yeah.
I'm monitoring the chat for any other questions. This is an important point. When we're talking about, I'm sorry, that's also a good point. That's not
Yes.
the one I meant to click on.
Yep.
This is the one I meant to click on.
Oh, yes.
Ricky Sanchez, name of the podcast, name of a player. When we finally interview Ricky himself, the man, that will be the last episode of
Yes.
this podcast.
So if you see Ricky Sanchez joins the pod in the
It's
podcast
over.
title,
it's all over.
that's it. That's the last one.
That is it. I also
Yeah.
like this one, which claims that years ago Mike said he was a master at loading the dishwasher. I am. And so I'm happy to provide evidence of that. If this was on a laptop, I would walk you over to the dishwasher right now.
Which way do you orientate your silverware when you put them in? Because I recently
prongs up. Of
Yeah.
course.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Of course.
Well, how do you put it in the thing if it's not prongs up?
Well,
the thing's got little holes in it.
You could stuff it in
Prongs
the
down.
square, just like down in the square.
Okay.
So I take it very seriously.
So this came from Josh, writes rickysanchez@gmail.com. Hi, guys. I'm a day one Ricky listener, and I've never figured out why the Al Horford Appreciator shirt says EST.2011. Horford came into the league before then, but didn't play for Boston until after then. Further, the Hawks team Spike really hated was later. Been driving me crazy for years now, and I'd appreciate it if you guys would discuss on the pod. Here's why. No reason whatsoever. I have no idea. Tanner made the design. Tanner Lowry does most of our t-shirt art. He probably made a mistake, made it 2011. I didn't correct it, and now there's hundreds of t-shirts out there. One of our top selling t-shirts of all time, like top 3, is the Al Horford Appreciator shirt. I have no idea why it says 2011. It was probably a mistake from Tanner.
Great.
There you go. This comes from Jason, writes RickySanchez@gmail.com. It's very off-brand for you to do a one-time podcast explaining the bits, but since you are, I've always come to wonder what game/context the Doug Collins, quote, ultimate game clip from the Jigsaw intro came from. A YouTube clip of the original press conference would be nice. Was it the same game he said he used to run through his shoes when he played? So if I remember correctly, and I don't exactly know, but if I remember correctly, I know this happened. A Ricky listener, I forget who it was, God bless you, whoever it was, sent me an email with like 20 different Doug Collins clips that when we did the show from the radio station and I could just like fire off clips, I would do that all the time to harass you. And when I put together the Jigsaw thing, I used that because Jigsaw would say, of course, would you like to play a game? So I know the clip came from there, but I don't know original. Now, he was quoting Dwayne Thomas, who I think was a Washington Redskins player, a running back, who said it about the Super Bowl. He was at a press conference, I believe it was for the Super Bowl, and said they called it the ultimate game. And he said, if it's the ultimate game, why do they play it again next year? So Doug Collins didn't even come up with that. He was quoting someone else, but I don't know. I don't know when he said it.
Doug Collins threw out the first pitch.
Yes.
At the Phillies game today.
Yeah, well, and they lost 10-0 and almost
Brandon
got no
Galton, who we mentioned in this podcast already, sent me the tweet with the video of Doug throwing a first pitch out. And Brandon said, hammered the Astros money line so fast. And I said, I could screenshot it and show it to you. Doug plus Taiwan is a 10-run loss. And they lost 10-0.
Very
I
appropriate.
know Doug Collins and his loser energy so intimately that I could see the future. God, and it was an awful throw. And he's terrible.
So this is good. Now this will come with a video explanation. This came from Ryan. Hey guys, this is in regard to the Ask Any Inside Jokes You Don't Get thing. Okay. I've been listening since January 2017. I haven't missed many pods except for some in May of 2023 after Harden blew it in Game 7 against the Celtics. Totally I was traumatized and needed a month or two to be Sixers free. By the way, Embiid also blew it. But I somehow missed the origin of the bit where Daryl gets called Harold. I've always kind of assumed it was Montrezl Harrell, but I figured I'd ask now that I have the chance.
No, you got to understand the spelling. It is Daryl with an H.
Yes. Now, when I first heard it, I assumed Tony T was calling him Harold and not Harold, but it sounds like Harold. So, okay. So we had a vote for the Process Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
The Process Hall of Fame vote, and Process Hall of Fame, we do Sixers thing, Process thing and Ricky thing or whatever it was. And for the Ricky thing vote, the two finalists really were Daryl coming on the podcast while he was president of the Rockets from the bubble. Mm-hmm. And the other one was Tony T's famous song, Me and Kyrie, performed on the pod after his January 6th story, which is still the most unhinged episode of the podcast we've ever done. And my favorite. I could watch it all the time, whatever. So Daryl, the vote goes, and Daryl appearing on the pod wins. And we get a hostage-style video from Tony T. Well, we don't know if it's Tony T because he's wearing a mask, saying that he represents Coven. Count our votes even now. And here is the video that we received.
Count our votes even now.
Even now.
This brings me no joy. I am at an undisclosed location, and I am an anonymous member of Coven. Count our votes even now. We know this election was fraudulent. Harold Morey ain't no way beat Tony and Kyrie song, okay? And we are taking action. We've kidnapped CJ, and we will not bring him back until we get a recount in our fucking vote. Harold Morey, you asshole. You might be the coach now, but you ain't gonna be the coach next year when they lose again. Okay? Kevin forever. And CJ's in trouble. You better fix this shit now. Kevin forever.
And then, of course, now we've never got a comment from him, but CJ disappeared for a couple of episodes of the podcast.
Yep.
Eventually returned.
Memory wiped.
That is where Harold Morey came from. And there was a t-shirt made from that I think is my favorite t-shirt. And it was so popular to the lunatics that our DraftKings chief lunatic, Ethan, before we even made a Coven t-shirt, made me a handmade t-shirt that ended up frighteningly similar to the actual t-shirt. So the t-shirt has a knife on the back that says CJ.
Yeah,
so
the knife is good.
Yeah. So that is the origin of Harold Morey. This came from Jonathan. I've always wondered why there are big Lebowski clips in both the intro and outro songs. Was this ever explained? Why that scene with the kid in the car? Will Tony T ever tell us the connection between the dude and the process? Don't know. The song was created by Amos and Jaron Alefsky, his musical director and longtime partner in making music. And they made it, and they put Big Lebowski clips in it. I've never made it through Big Lebowski. I fall asleep every time I'm watching it. I didn't think it was that good.
Our connection with Tony T is a little bit like having a relative or like a friend that you grew up with that you're always having to make excuses for.
Yes.
Where you bring him to a party and you're like, I'm sorry. You just have to give him a heads up, just to let him do the thing. So, but we love him and we've been with him forever and we're not going to let him go.
Yeah.
Tony T, our boy.
Here we go. This came from Zach. And I believe that you are mostly responsible for this. Hi, Spike, Mike, and CJ. I'm one of those weird Sixers fans who didn't discover the podcast until much later, specifically after the Game 7 loss to the Raptors, when I needed to make sense of what I watched. That being said, what is the origin of Say the Name? I've always assumed it was a way to get doubters of the process in the media to publicly acknowledge the pod and us diehard Sixers fans.
Well, so that is probably how it started. There's like a sense of we were obviously very pro process, the Liberty Ballers people at the time, very pro process, and the mainstream, I guess it was CSN Philly at the time.
Yes.
And the Inquirer and the Daily News, whatever, were all very anti. And so we felt like we were a little bit of in a counterculture thing. And that it started off with them just alluding to those other people. That was us. What it became and what it is mostly is various reporters, journalists, either in print or on a broadcast or whatever.
Sorry.
Crazy. Insane. Get a handle on that switchboard. He never will.
I'm sorry. I never will. I was trying to get the voicemails ready. Anyway.
What it became was people just not saying the name of the podcast to indicate why things were happening. And so it would be obviously the famous one is Sixers fans gathered.
Yes.
At, Buffalo Wild Wings for the lottery party, at Xfinity Live for the lottery party, at Philly's Miller Ale House, whatever. Or at various Fly the Processes to be there's 300 Sixers fans up in section 214, and it's a very organized event, and random people just being Sixers fans are here. And it felt very they were avoiding the name of the podcast, partially because the name of the podcast is weird and they don't know why it's named that way. And they assume that it's something dirty
Or racist even.
Something either. It is in fact neither. It is just honoring the rights of a player that the Sixers acquired and then subsequently traded in short order.
Yeah.
And for many people didn't say it. And then Kate Scott, who came on this podcast, then came on the podcast in at the live show wearing a Say the Name shirt because she said the name on broadcasts. And CJ has lovingly put that clip of Kate saying she said the name at the live show in the intro video of this podcast, which I smile at every time.
What's also funny is when we're doing something at a game that she's at and she makes reference to it without saying the name, people start like threatening her online that they get worried that she's not going to say
It's
it.
tough. She said it so many times, and you slip up once, and the pressure's still on to say it again.
I remember once at a lottery party, you wanted like it was cost prohibitive, the size of the banner you wanted at Xfinity Live that just said "Say the Name." That way, when CSN Philly came and shot it, they would have to show.
They'd have to show it.
The thing that said "Say the Name."
It's not just they didn't just happen to. It was as if like Sixers fans, like zombies, sort of migrated to an event.
Yes.
Without being any reason to be there. They just happened to all have similar psychosis at the same time. Not like, a group actually organized. This actually is an instance when this is organized. This is an organized event.
Yes.
Acknowledge that.
The Rights Ricky Sanchez podcast is brought to you by Mortgage CS. I just want to say, go to mortgagecs.com/Ricky. If you forget any of this, there's two things you need to remember. Mortgagecs.com/Ricky. That's where you can go schedule your call with them so you can learn more about them. Or you can call or text Ben, the CEO, at any time, 267-391-7425. You can even do it right now. He's probably not great at the Ricky Lore thing. He is a great guy. He's good at his job. Ricky Lore, they've only been with us for a couple of years. Call or text Ben, again, 267-391-7425. Mortgage CS is a mortgage broker. They're not a lender, they're a broker, and which means they go to the lenders, and when you need a mortgage, they help you find the mortgage, or if you need to refinance, they help you do that, whatever. It's so important to have somebody like them in that position because most mortgage brokers take on too many clients, and now a lot of them are understaffed because there's not as many loans being written because there's not as many houses being sold. So they've cut down on staff, and they're just not with you the way that the Mortgage CS people are with you. And because Mortgage CS is independent, they do not have any like secret deals with banks or whatever. And a lot of times the other mortgage brokers do get extra if they send you to one lender rather than the other. But Mortgage CS doesn't do that. They treat all of our listeners the right way. You really do become a Mortgage CS Ricky VIP. You learn more about the process. They're with you whenever you need them. So if you need a pre-qualification letter on a Wednesday night or have a question on a Sunday morning, they're always there. Now we're approaching the time of the year when buyers have a bit more of an advantage in the fall and the winter because there's not as many people out there looking to buy. So Mortgage CS can help you find money for a down payment, how you do that. They can help you understand your budget and like what your actual payment will be, forgetting about the purchase price of the house. And you can have sort of an advantage being out there looking for a home when people are not. Also, rates starting to come down. It seems like as well by the end of the year, if you look at betting markets or whatever, they're going to come down even further, which is good for you because you'll have to spend less money, but also there'll be more people out in the market looking for homes, which means you having a great mortgage broker will be a huge benefit to you. Here's what I want you to do. Again, just talk to them before you do anything. If you're going to buy a house, talk to them. Text Ben, 267-391-7425. Go to mortgagecs.com/Ricky. This advertisement, I was just looking for the disclaimer here. This advertisement, not a commitment to lend or extend credit. Mortgage CS is an equal housing opportunity mortgage broker. All loans are subject to credit approval. Certain restrictions may apply. Company NMLS 1464766. Visit mortgagecs.com/Ricky for more information. This came from Josh. Hi, Spike, Mike, CJ, and Kristen. I've had this one brewing for a minute, and it seems like Mike opened the floodgate, so here it goes. I remember when the body bio code was Fire CJ, and I always wondered what prompted that. At the time, I gave it some, parentheses, frankly, too much thought, and came up with this explanation. There was a video pod back in the day where, for a brief second, a hater's comment about having a supplement company as a sponsor flashed in the lower third. Likely CJ just selected the wrong comment to appear and it was gone as quickly as appeared. But my guess is the folks at Body Bio saw this and it angered them, perhaps so much that they not only created this Fire CJ code, but also have been trolling Spike and Mike to create influencer ads that will never see the light of day.
That is fucked up.
Yeah. Is that correct? I'd love to be proven right or wrong. This is not true. I think I came up with it initially as sort of a bit to get us to
you like to threaten him.
Yeah, and to get to 10,000 YouTube followers, as CJ is the video guy, I would say, hey, if we don't get to 10,000, CJ is going to get fired or whatever. But I think that was all it was.
I think it was the main lead up for the live pod.
Your mic is a little low. Just turn it up a little bit. There you go. There you go.
I just got a new mixer.
There you go.
I think it was a lead up to the live pod.
Yeah.
That was starting to roll out. But no, it wasn't like an error that I made and then you started threatening it live.
CJ doesn't make errors.
Yes.
He's perfect.
And
Except having a mic that's too low.
By the way, it could have very well been me putting that comment up, because I will occasionally put comment. But actually, more likely it was me than it was you.
I will say, in your defense, StreamYard makes it way too easy to display comments, because if you want to delete a comment, you need to click a very small little box
3-dot
thing.
Yeah.
And if you miss that, then the comment will be displayed. So.
Josh says, lastly, I've been listening to the Ricky since Ben was drafted, just got into basketball and not related to my love of his game. And I also listened to another podcast hosted by two comedy writers, Hollywood Handbook, who spun off their own basketball pod called The Flagrant Ones. I got to know, does Mike know or interact with these guys?
Yeah, I worked with both Sean and Hayes of Hollywood Handbook on the show The Grinder. I was an assistant on that show. Very nice guys, very funny guys. I still listen to Hollywood Handbook. It is very funny.
From Tim, what happened to Chris?
I got one from the chat.
Okay.
What are smokers' arms exactly?
We actually got this in email too. So this is, you came up with this. So this is.
Yeah, it was it's based on someone. So if you think about
Kyrie, is it the Kyrie?
It started with Kyrie. This was years and years ago, when he was on the Celtics, where the arms of someone, I will do my best to describe it, but I'll tell you ahead of time. It's more of just a feeling, than anything else. And it's like someone that used to be in better physical shape, that time has caught up to them a little bit. The amount of cigarettes they've smoked has caught up to them a little bit, and their arms look a little bit flat, too much skin for what little muscle is now there, a little deflated. And if you think about imagining 90s, imagine Boy Meets World, and someone smoking in an alley or behind the school in Boy Meets World, and just their arms being just a little bit less strong than you would expect them to be. And you see Kyrie with the jersey on, you're just like, I feel like all the cigarette smoke really got to you there. I have no proof. I don't know if Kyrie smokes cigarettes, whatever, but it's a feeling, and he does have smoker's arms, and I stand by it.
He does. And that was a long and good explanation, but it's really you know it when you see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. This came from Tim. What happened to Kristen?
So Tim didn't listen to the.
Yeah.
I don't remember. This was just in the middle of the season. Then we revealed it. I think that I did.
Yeah. So Kristen was our intern, and she never existed. She was not real.
Philip was our first intern.
Also didn't exist.
Never existed, and we came up with the idea of having an intern because we thought it'd be funny to have an intern for the podcast. And this is early on, and then eventually we were like, well, he's been an intern for 2 years, so he should probably move on at some point. And then Philip moved on, and then Kristen came, and then Kristen, by that time we were answering emails, and you had when you sent out a Ricky newsletter or whatever, it was signed by Kristen. And so I think Kristen got to have more FaceTime with people in an email way. But then the podcast has the the team of the podcast has grown to where it is no longer ridiculous that we would have an intern.
No, several people have asked to be interns, by the way.
And so once CJ got here, it was a little bit well, did CJ get promoted over Kristen? And unfortunately, Kristen nor Philip never existed. And then we both, at least I started feeling bad about it. I think people thought that they were they're part of the community, and we were a little bit catfishing, I guess, our listeners with fake interns. So our bad on that. It just didn't didn't seem feasible at the time that we would ever have use for an intern. And now we got so many people.
Yeah.
So
this came from Patrick.
Rest in peace to the people that never existed.
The only reason I'm reading this is because we got a few like this. I thought this was a good example of it. And it is specifically not what we're talking about with this sort of thing. I just want to address it. It's not what this episode is about.
Okay.
Hi, Spike, Mike, CJ, and Daryl. Not sure who reads the emails, he says. I guess it might be Daryl. As I see it, there are several Ricky mysteries due to various reasons. I'm sure that you can't answer any of these questions, but I figure it was worth a try. I'm sure there's more mysteries, but these are the ones I lie awake thinking about. So let me read the 4. Spike has alluded several times that things ended badly with one sponsor. Who is it? My guess is Colony Meadery, just a gut thing. By the way, it's not Colony Meadery. Love them. Just telling you, it's not them. How does Spike know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Harden has lots of sex?
Yes.
This is even more interesting because he refuses to reveal how he knows.
That's right.
3, what is the comedy TV show that Mike doesn't like? And 4, what was bleeped out during the Daryl interview after the Harden-Simmons trade? So we've never revealed these things. So the point of this pod is to explain things that we have explained. Now, to me, the lore would be if somebody was like, what's this thing about Harden having lots of sex? And the lore would be Spike intimated at one point that he knows that Harden has lots of sex. Mike refused to acknowledge that it's true if I didn't tell him how I knew, and refuses to hear how I know off the pod. He says I must say it on the pod.
Yeah, I'm a man of the people. I need to hear it on the pod. If you can say it in front of me, you can say it in front of the whole class.
So that is what we would explain, not actually give the answers, because we haven't said any of those things.
Now's a great time for you to give that answer.
The Harden sex thing? Yeah. I won't give the answer, but I will tell you someone who does know the answer is Andrew Sharp knows the answer. And he, I was on Greatest of All Talk, his pod, and somehow that came up. And he asked me afterwards, we obviously didn't say what it was, because I think one of his listeners asked about it. He was like, did you say that? How you knew on the pod? And I was like, no, I did not. So he was stunned that I may have said it on the pod. I can't say it. I just do. I know. And by the way, it wasn't this big...
And I won't even text Andrew about it, because if Andrew wants to say it, he can say it on this podcast.
It wasn't some big thing where I'm like, guess what I know? It was, I just said it. And you were like, how do you know?
The idea that a guy's going around talking about how much sex he has, it's like, he probably hasn't. He's had sex like under 3 times.
Okay. This came from Ross. Love that you're explaining Ricky lore. Getting it from the OG is better than trusting Reddit. 3 questions. 1, how did the jigsaw get started? 2, the origin story of the Lorenzo Brown mailbag. And 3 was, quote, the process, the podcast motivation and identity from the very beginning.
The podcast started before the process.
No.
Right?
Nope. Now you were on my
radio show,
but
which
the first,
I think that counts.
Yeah. Okay. Counts. Our talking about the Sixers started before the,
Lorenzo Brown mailbag was because it's sending something to and from something, and Lorenzo Brown kept getting sent to and from Delaware into the D League at the time.
Yep.
What was the first one?
Jigsaw is, I like to give people horrible would you rathers, and I was in the car once with my friend Matt Battle, and Matt, we were driving to Rochester, I think, me, him, and one other guy, and I was giving these horrible would you rathers, way worse than what we do on the podcast, and he said, you're like Jigsaw from Saw. Jigsaw gives people horrible decisions that they have to choose between, and that's where that came from. And I would do them all on the pod. This is, I think, a good one, though I know, oh my God. Oh no. Okay. We're almost at the Lickface portion. This came from Mark.
Making people sit through an hour of this to answer the most asked question with an incredibly unsatisfying answer.
Yep.
That's good. That's August, baby.
So this comes from Mark. A semi-constant during the 6 years I've been listening to this podcast has been the occasional reference about Bill Simmons. For my one-time only question, can you please clarify this podcast's official stance on Bill Simmons? It seems like you each have strong opinions on this person, but what those opinions are have been difficult to nail down. At times, you've made it seem like he's a giant loser who is really annoying. At other times, you've almost had a grudging respect for his role in transforming sports journalism, but nevertheless find him annoying. Still other times, it's felt like you secretly, or perhaps not so secretly, really love him. I'd appreciate if you could issue an official Ricky position on Bill Simmons. My own cents is that Bill Simmons sucks, and that the time you spent making fun of Tommy Alter would be better spent making fun of him.
Bill at least has a clear role. Yeah, he really has. His role is defined. He's there for a reason.
Yes.
You like Bill more. I just never really listened to him, and then he's a Celtics fan. He's such an obvious homer, and I think some of his takes are insane. And I was friends with a lot of people in the Ringer union and was annoyed by how they handled that.
I would say that the two most important people as far as like audio media that I've listened to who shaped who I am and what I do are Howard Stern and Bill Simmons. I grew up listening to Howard Stern. Bill Simmons was the first podcast I ever listened to. And I think he is largely responsible for like sports podcasts, how they are in general. I was a very regular listener up until probably 4 or 5 years ago when I just, you listen to somebody long enough and it's just like, I only had so much time to listen to stuff anymore and I didn't really listen anymore. I just like, it didn't appeal to me as much anymore. Like I'm an early days guy where Jacko and fucking House and it was just all his buddies on all the time. So that's it. And I do regret there was a period in which when we were building, I used to try to use his fame like online as a way to gain traction, like would go after him, not personally or whatever, mostly because he was anti-process and that sort of stuff and pro-Celtics. But that's it. That's the take. I would say the only time I ever listen now is when he has Chuck Klosterman on or if there's a friend of mine on, and that's pretty much it. But I think he is very important in the sports podcast world. Smoker's Arms question, which we've gotten past.
I just think like he's not as old as Hubie Brown, but a little bit like if you're doing it for that long, it's like just still
dude, he's like 7 years older than me.
No, I'm not saying it's not an age thing. It's a prime thing.
Oh, right.
It feels weird for him to still be doing like categories. Yes. Like, and I'm going to make up little categories for everybody in the league, and I'm going to name them like little clever things. And it just feels like that's so like, it's not 2005.
Yeah. But people, I mean, he's insanely
people
popular.
Like it. People love it. Of course. I, just not for me.
Not your thing. Smoker's Arms, we got past that. 2 more, and then the Lickface section. From Moses, dear Mike and Spike, I've asked this question before, and I'm hoping this time it will be answered. Years ago, you guys would post random clips on Instagram out of the blue with random people saying the name. The most random by far was Jahlil Okafor. My question to you is, how did you get him to say the name? Do you feel bad about it at all, saying the name and promoting the podcast after years of you guys shitting on him? So when this happened was when I don't
remember this.
We were promoting Live Ricky. This is what I think I got Jadakiss from the Locks to do it too.
Oh, like on cameos?
Yeah, I just got a cameo, but it was very early in cameo time, and it's very easy to crop out the cameo thing on there. And to be clear, he got paid and he knew what he was doing, so I don't feel bad about it at all. Plenty of people turned me down, by the way. So
sure,
yeah. And then finally, before we get to Lickface, this came from Elliot. Big fan of the pod, been listening since 2020 when I rediscovered my love of basketball. The Sixers were my childhood team because of AI, so I dived back into supporting them during the bubble without hesitation. I probably should have been more discerning. I'm from outside the U.S., so I never knew of you guys before then, but through Reddit, I found my way to you guys. I feel sorry for asking a magician.
If he was from like Indianapolis, he'd be seeing us all over.
Yes. So the Lickface is last, but the other two questions: what is the origin of the end of pod music, and what is the context of the Keith Pompei clip pushing the camera away? So
That's not. Oh.
It's not pushing the camera away.
So I got it. This is one of my favorite things in the history of the Sixers.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of things that the Sixers have, a lot of stuff they've gotten into that has been upsetting and has been damaging. This is a great one. It's a Sixers, I'm pretty sure it's a Sixers Kings game. And it was like the night after, or there was a Flyers game that day or the night before or something, and the ice was like still too cold or something, and it was like the ice basically water started leaking through the court.
So I believe what it was, the water was condensation because the building was too warm.
That's it. And that's probably why the building's so fucking cold all the time.
Yes, because there's ice under the wood. And what started happening was the condensation from the ice was going on the wood.
Yes. And so Keith, an intrepid reporter who I love, took a video of placing his hand on the ground onto the hardwood of the court and then showing the camera, not pushing the camera away, but showing the camera that his hand was wet. CJ, pull it up again. Here it is.
Hi, this is Keith Pompei, the Philadelphia Inquirer. I want to show you my hand. I just want to let you guys know how wet this floor is right now. Here's my hand. Go down here.
Oh, wow.
He gets down there, he rubs it.
There
now
it
look
is.
at all the water on my
And
hand.
now it's wet. And that's journalism, and that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I love him for it.
Yep. And later he would go on to set an alarm for every time one of the buildings was hit during 9/11 to remind himself. So
That might have been before.
no. Nope.
I got to get my timeline straight.
It was definitely after.
But
So
yeah, the alarms of the alarms for remembering precisely the moment of 9/11. It's just like, you're not going to get that anywhere else. That's beautiful stuff.
Now, I never get to the end of the pod. CJ, is the end of the pod music the female vocal one, or what are the one? What's the music you put on the end of the pod?
If you don't fuck with me.
Yeah, but which one is it?
It's not. It's like a robo.
Okay.
robotic one.
So
Yeah.
I think it's Dave's. So during the pandemic, we did an EP of artists recreating the song written by Tony T. If you don't fuck with me, I won't fuck with you. Or if I don't, and we got real artists to make it. So Eliza Hardy Jones did a version. Mountjoy did a version. And this one, the one at the end of the pod, I believe is the one that Dave Hartley did. Dave Hartley of the War on Drugs did a remix of Tony T's song, and we put it at the end of the pod. So the original You Don't Fuck With Me, I wonder if I have that. So that's what I believe is at the end of the pod. Hold on. Tony T. And I believe we called it the Tony T EP. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So here's the Eliza Hardy Jones one.
Oh yeah, this is nice. I remember this.
Yeah.
You don't fuck with me, yeah. I don't fuck with you, yeah. You don't fuck with me, yeah. I don't fuck with you, yeah. You don't fuck with me, yeah.
So, and then,
Really
what's this
nice.
one?
Beautiful stuff. I
Oh,
love it.
Jernalewski. Oh, this is the one that we use, right? Jernalewski did it. So this is Amos's musical
If you don't
director.
fuck with me, then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
Then I won't fuck with you.
If you don't fuck with me,
It's so dumb.
then I won't fuck with you.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Yeah. So.
We've been doing this show for a long ass time.
Oh,
you
and
guys.
here's the Mountjoy one. Might as well. Since we're
Shout
going.
out Tony to Tony for writing this classic. fuck with me, well, I won't fuck with you. And if you don't fuck with me.
By the way, it is not, it's very easy for it to get lost on you that the person who created it in the first place is Amos Lee, who is a renowned singer-songwriter who has a #1 album in his on his resume. You know, I saw him play a sold-out Red Rocks.
Never kidnapped anybody, though, did he?
What's that?
Never kidnapped anybody the way Tony did.
Not that we know of.
So,
and then the people making these remakes, two of them, Dave and Eliza, are in War on Drugs, one of the biggest indie bands in the world. And then Mount Joy, who is also enormous now. What the fuck are you guys doing? What are you guys doing? So
there you go.
So now we've come to the Lickface portion of the pod.
Strap in.
I will say there are 4 voicemails and countless emails. I mean, just tons of emails. Joe from London, Eric, Connor, Zach, Jared, Steve, Alistair, Alyssa, Luke, like lots of people just wanting to know about both where the phrase Lickface came from and where the call-in response, are you down with TTP? Yeah, you know Lickface came from. Do you want to take the Lickface portion?
I'll tell the story of when the time when I wasn't saying it for like 2 years.
Okay. So I'll tell the story around. Okay. So the Lickface thing came from a jigsaw in which one of the options was to have your face always smell like it had dried lick on it.
Yeah.
Which is horrible smell. And that
I don't think it's so bad.
That evolved into which player on the team is most likely to have this. And that player we determined was Henry Sims.
Which I've since felt bad about.
Yeah, I have no idea even why. Why is it? And then the call-in response, I was at a charity thing for a local high school student, lacrosse player, I think, that was done in his memory. And I was like basically cornered by 3 young men outside the bathroom who were all listeners and said that they believed we needed something to say to other listeners to let them know that they had been in it for a while. And
I didn't remember this.
We discussed what that should be. And if I remember correctly, the person who came up with down TTP, yeah, you know Lickface, was Jason Lipschitz. I think it was him. Somebody suggested it to us. It wasn't us. Like many of our great things, somebody just says, you guys should do this, and we just do it, and then it works. So that is where Lickface came from, and that's where Are You Down with TTP, you know Lickface came from.
Yeah, and it is obviously a very uncomfortable thing to say.
It's horrible. I hate it at the end of every pod.
I dread it.
Yeah.
And I wasn't saying it for a long stretch of time because I was rebelling and objecting to the fact that Jahlil Okafor was still on the roster. And so I was not going to say it until they traded him. And then they did.
And you said it again.
But I think maybe I should come up with another thing I won't do. I should start having sort of like stakes on things from now on of my behavior on the podcast. So we'll try to come up with some more of those.
My back really hurts, man. Really hurts. I hope it goes away.
We're fucking the amount of physical pain we put ourselves in for you people to listen to an August podcast where we explain our lore.
Yep.
So there you go.
Mo says, really thought Henry Sims' nickname was Lickface in college for some reason. No,
not to my knowledge. Hollis Sims' college teammate. Hollis Thompson's college teammate though at Georgetown.
Yeah, and if you remember correctly, there was a rap song done by Henry
Hollis.
Sims about Hollis or by Hollis about Henry Sims when he's running?
I think by Hollis. My profile picture used to be on Twitter, used to be Hollis Thompson, so people did think I was black for a little bit. I was like, no, that's current Sixer Hollis Thompson. Yeah, we've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's many other questions that people have. You don't really hear about from people that started listening in like 2013 and stopped in like 2016. You don't hear from them anymore, but they got to exist. And maybe they had the answers to some questions that we've even forgotten about.
Never know.
But we're still doing it. We're still here. We're still wearing we're still hanging around the high school bars. We are close to doing this podcast for as long as a person was in 1st through 12th grade. We are approaching a full American education of this podcast.
Learned nothing. Learned absolutely
and learned nothing. I'm saying the same shit I've been saying this whole goddamn time. But we're still here, and we're still waiting for a satisfying resolution to all of this. And we will just have to keep waiting, won't we? I did listen to the Paul George podcast with Jared McCain.
Should I listen to it?
I mean, it's nice. It's a nice listen. Jared McCain is a delight, and I like his just like he's gratitude journals and stuff. Not necessarily my speed. I don't know what that does, but the guys are doing their thing, and he is like deeply himself in a way that I appreciate, and I think that kind of personality mixed with how much he is like a psycho killer on the court is really very a cool personality type. And he said on the podcast, he's like, obviously, if we start losing, like people are going to come after my TikToks as like being the reason.
Yes.
And to know that and to keep doing it is like, he's just going to be himself and people are going to say what they say. And so I came out of that really liking McCain. Paul George comes out of it looking nice. He's like excited to like be a mentor, be a vet to those kinds of guys. I think it was a nice listen. It got me. It's a good August, September listen for being excited about an upcoming season, which will surely go well this time.
It always does. It always goes exactly how we wanted it to go.
And I teased the story that a couple we didn't do a podcast midweek, but I did. There was a basketball story that you said to tease from my co-ed league, and it really was just that a huge guy on the other team, 6'7", like tight end shaped guy, got ejected from a game playing against me after he had a hard foul on me in transition, and then my big man on my team like had my back, and then that guy went after him in like a really like violent. He didn't hit him, but it was like a lot of like lurching at him, and saying a ton of threats. Really, it was crazy. The refs did nothing. The refs called the game. They ejected him and said the game's over. And I was like, there's 5 minutes into the second half. Can we keep playing and just tell him to leave? And they're like, no, game's canceled. And so luckily we were winning, but another ref complaint. Can't even keep the league together. Have to cancel games because you can't eject some guy. He was huge, and I would have been scared of him of continuing the game also if he was still there. But yeah, crazy shit happened. To get ejected from a co-ed league for like fighting or threatening was a wild thing.
Sure is. You should be proud of that.
I didn't get ejected.
Well, that you were involved in.
That I was involved. Yeah.
Yes.
No, that was good. And we're doing good. Co-ed league's going good. I think we're 6-2, and we haven't. When me and Alyssa have played together, we have not lost. I've lost once without her. She's lost once without me. So, my marriage might be the secret sauce here, Spike. We could be finding something. Maybe the Sixers need to get married. Some Sixers need to marry each other.
Next week on the pod, which Sixers should marry each other?
There you go.
As we get through August still. All right. We will hope all these answers fucking make you. What do we do with the 6 minutes of weekly Becky voice?
We will save it for next time.
Okay.
We're happy to hear we're happy to hear that Becky is alive and well and still with us, and we'll see out of breath, and so excited to find out what she's up to. You got to save some good stuff. You got to save it, and we're not going to answer any more questions.
Never.
Maybe next August if we need another thing to talk about.
Okay.
Maybe we do it again. So get your questions ready for next August.
All right. Are you down with TTP?
Yeah, Lickface.